Barbara Athletics. Max Kelton joins us on 365 Sports. The Gauchos play Baylor coming up on Friday in Denver. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoke, and David Smokes. Max, thanks you very much. Can you kind of give us just an overall summary about this particular year, this season of who Santa Barbara has been?
Well, anytime you're facing the number 14 seed, frankly, from a team like the Big 12, they don't know much about these teams. But let me make no mistake that UC Santa Barbara certainly has a winning culture. And that's clear this year with six-year head coach Joe Pasternak. It's a record 27 wins for the Gauchos. They're led by A.J. Miller. He's a terrific offensive presence, the player of the year in the Big West. This is a young man who can score and close out games really well. I love the matchup between the Bears and UCSB. I'm really excited for it. And I think that the Gauchos, who have won all season, won their Big West tournament, are poised to maybe shock the world right here. And I appreciate you having me come on because I have a lot to talk about here when it comes to UCSB and this Baylor matchup and why it favors the Gauchos.
Okay, so defensively, obviously the Gauchos are a better team. Baylor has not – they're the worst team in the Big 12 on defense. But – can they score with Baylor if those guards get hot?
That's the real question that everybody's asking, right? If the guards get hot, can UCSB keep up with Baylor? Well, let me give you this. The Baylor Bears have allowed, over the last 15 games, 13 opponents to shoot over 45% from the field. Aside from that, one of those two, Oklahoma State, they're the worst field goal efficiency team in the Big 12, so I leave it at that. I feel that's an exception. So let's think about that. 13 of 14, aside from Oklahoma State, have shot over 45%. UC Santa Barbara is a terrific field goal efficiency team, especially on the offensive side. They're 8th in the country in field goal efficiency, field goal percentage. They're so good at developing a presence on the inside from two-point land. That's got to be the key. And while the Bears are so good at knocking them down from three, the Gauchos have to keep pace at finding that presence on the inside. So that's got to be a huge key for UCSB. And moving forward, they also have to be able to box out not only on the interior, but around the perimeter as well, because long shots create long rebounds. And for a Baylor team that shoots so many three-pointers, a lot of those long rebounds go out to the guards. So if the Gauchos can eliminate guards from creating offensive boards and then creating second chance opportunities, UCSB will be in a really good spot. And Joe Pasternak has consistently outcoached opponents all season long, and that's a big reason why the Gauchos are here with their best record in years and their most wins in program history. It's because this is a guy on one side of the chessboard who knows how to play the game and has learned from the best there is. He was a manager under Bobby Knight. He's coached under Sean Miller, and now he has led this program to new heights. And it's the second playoff berth, NCAA tournament berth over the last 3 years for UCSB in a very competitive Big West Conference.
What was I saw the video reaction when their name was called and they would be the 14th seed against Baylor. What were some things that just people around the program, maybe even text messages that you were sharing with those who understand UC Santa Barbara, just the overall take initially?
Well, I think initially folks are excited that we're a 14 seed. I think some of them even expected to be maybe a 13, those that were more optimistic. But this is a team that, caught fire toward the end of the year. And in the middle of the season, they were on a win streak to open up the season where they had only lost one or two non-conference games, right? And then they started out conference play winning 8 or 9 straight. So this is a team that, once again, a winning culture, no doubt about it, and they're excited to show what they can do with the best. Now, when they pulled Baylor, it was funny. I was at the selection show. I had said to one of the assistant coaches, I said, I expect to get Baylor. I hadn't seen Lenardi post about it. I hadn't seen any of the others, but I expect to get Baylor, and frankly, that's the matchup that I wanted. A Baylor team that has somewhat struggled as of late, and, you look at this UCSB team, just how they match up statistics-wise. I really like where the Gauchos are. Now, the problem for UCSB as of late, you look at a 3-game skid in February, that had to do with injuries and depth. this is a team that started out the season as deep as ever, yet they dealt with injuries to a player like KK Tong. He's a freshman, 6'9" out of South Sudan. This is a young man who made more of an impact on the floor than he did on the stat sheet, and he was really crucial in the Gauchos' success, especially on the defensive side and rebounding side of the ball. So Baylor fans should be really excited that he was out for the season over the last 6 games. A guy like Ajari Sadi might make his way back, however, and that adds some depth for UCSB in the backcourt because this is a team that, well, they're really good in the backcourt with this 6-man rotation. Sani is a player who can strike from outside, and the Gauchos would certainly utilize him around the perimeter from his three-point shooting. He's a 3-and-D type of guy. So that said, UCSB has been scoring the ball at an elite rate, not just in the Gauchos, realm, but in the country as of late. You look at their last 6 games, averaging near 85 points per game, and that says something to who this team is and what they can bring to the table. So when you ask, hey, can they keep pace with Baylor? You bet they can. They're one of the best scoring teams in the country. That said, though, I asked Joe Pasmack, I said, Joe, do you like this poll? What were your first thoughts? He said, we're focused on us. If we do what we do well, then we can compete with anybody. And I think that is the message in that locker room right now, that they can compete with anybody and they're ready to shock the country.
Is there a little bit of worry, though, that they haven't – I mean, if you look through the non-con schedule, they didn't really swam in these waters yet this year, though.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. And I think that the resume of wins is checked off a little bit because of their lack of terrific opponents. They have not played against Big 12 opponents, and Baylor is in, let's face it, the best conference in the country, playing against the best teams in the country, with wins over a team like Texas, who I actually think is, a national champion favorite. I think that Baylor knows what it takes to play against the big dogs. But the real question is, who has more to lose? And a lot of the time, I think we consider, hey, is Baylor playing for its life, or are they playing not to get upset? And UCSB right now is playing with its life on the line, and they can only win. Hey, if the Gauchos lose, then okay, a 14 seed was unable to pull it out. But if Baylor loses, there's significantly more pressure on the Bears moving into this, because if Baylor loses, they lose to a 14 seed, they're upset. And let's get this straight, by the way. The last 4 number 3 seeds to be upset in the first round have come from the Big 12. So while, yes, UCSB has not played a terrific non-conference schedule, just because the Baylor Bears have, that doesn't mean that they are not susceptible to being upset here in this first round.
Well, that's a good stat on the 3 Big 12 teams.
Max, we've both been there watching them do it. So, Baylor's not immune.
Yeah, and then one thing about Cal Santa Barbara is no quad 1 games, not less no wins or losses, but no quad 1 games. And sometimes it might be because nobody wants to put them on their schedule. So 2 years ago, when Baylor won the national title and hammered Gonzaga, early on in that bracket, and there's a possibility not to look past the game with Baylor, but didn't Creighton beat UC Santa Barbara by 1 in the opening round in 21?
You bet your booty. And I love that you bring that up. It twists a knife in my heart. That was a really fun game because it came down to the wire, 63-62, and it was a missed shot that rolled off the rim from a guy like Amadou Sow, who's now playing overseas professionally in France. This is a totally different team, that said. There is experience. There are players who have been to the tournament, but a lot of transfer guys, a lot of guys who have not been able to really taste what that 2021 team was like. The backcourt that year was a guy like Ja'Cory McLaughlin, who is now playing G League with the Warriors, and Deverell Ramsey, who is playing professionally as well overseas. I think he's in London. And that backcourt has moved on. And now it's a new backcourt for UC Santa Barbara, including a guy like A.J. Mitchell. Let's remember, this is a player of the year. And it's not because he's so good at scoring, it's because he commands the game. That's one thing that was so crucial in deciding that POY candidate this year, who is going to win basketball games. And A.J. Mitchell, late in games, listen, I've been covering this team for near 7-8 years now. I'm young, so I haven't been around as long as some of the others who have watched UCSB basketball. And frankly, you guys who have watched the Bears for that long, right? But I'm young, and as long as I've been covering over the last 6, 7, 8 years under the Joe Pasternak era and beyond, there is no player who can finish games the way A.J. Mitchell can when it's tight. If it's a 1 or 2 possession game, this team is really, really good at closing things out. So if the Baylor Bears do not pull away, hey, if it's not a 20 or 15, 20-point lead or more, the Gauchos are in it. Seriously, do not count this team out toward the end of games, especially if they're in the lead. There are a few teams who are able to come back and then steal a win against the Gauchos. That said, they have never played, at least this season, a team of Baylor's prowess.
Max, great stuff. Thank you very much, buddy. We appreciate your time, appreciate your passion. Enjoy the broadcast. I know you will on Friday, early afternoon. At least it will be early afternoon here, 12:30 Central, and of course, 10:30? Well, it'll be in Denver Mountain Time, but for those in Santa Barbara. And the fact that you're in Santa Barbara, we hate you because we know how beautiful it is. We had an analytical guy, by the way, Evan Miyakawa, Evan Miya, M-I-Y-A. He is actually living in Santa Barbara. He's a Baylor grad who does a bunch of basketball analytics. And so 2 guests today are from the Santa Barbara area.
We made